Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
This is the podcast about murders and so much more. We will talk about anything strange, anything that goes bump in the night, and pretty much anything that amuses us.
And on that note, we need to mention that this podcast is not safe for work or delicate ears, so do be discerning who you listen to it with.
We also want to let you know that you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram, so look for us there.
I am Shannon Lawrence. I am a writer, mom, wife, student, procrastinator, and you can find me at thewarriormuse.com.
My name is MB Partlow. I am a writer, an avid reader, an organizer extraordinaire, a mom to kids, cats, and a dog, and I call bullshit when I see it.
Hello, people.
Howdy. I feel like I should sing something. I don't know why.
You know what? Why don't you sing us an intro, and we'll use that every week. You want to do that?
Yeah, that would be good.
So we're in the countdown. This is our third, we've got 3 to go, and then we're taking a 2-week break. But we're going to try and put together something special for those 2 weeks so you're not, completely without us. Because we wouldn't want you to miss us.
No, that would be dreadful.
But, yes, so here we are in the month of December.
I know. And at some point, shout out to one of Nikki's friends who started listening.
Oh, hello.
To our podcast. And I can't remember which friend, so I can't say their name.
That's a failed shout out right there.
Hi, all of Nikki's friends.
I don't even know if my kids' friends know I have a podcast. To them, it's just the day that I have to keep very quiet. That's what podcast means to them.
Well, they were talking about one of the cases. I can't remember which one, but Nikki sent her friend the link and said, "This is the one about that case." And the person said, "I want to no, I have to listen from the beginning so I'll know all the inside jokes." And I'm like, I love that your friend thinks we're that deep and nuanced. As opposed to
very occasionally.
Yeah. As opposed to just ridiculous and...
That's right. I can get deep, just usually not on the podcast.
Yeah.
So
sometimes we do after the microphone is turned off.
That's true. Or before or whatever. That's when we get out all the stuff so that Shannon's filter doesn't break. More than usual. And put it on there. I had a weird thought the other day. So we were watching, what do we want? Gone in 60 Seconds.
I'm going to write that down.
Okay, yeah, that's what we did for family movie night. So it was like, we just need an action movie. We just need something. So we watched that, of course, with Angelina Jolie and Giovanni Ribisi and Nicolas Cage and about a billion other people. I don't know if it's Chi McBride or Chi McBride. I think it's Chi.
I thought it was Shy.
Shit. Well, I love him, but I don't know how to pronounce his fucking name. But anyway, so many people in it. Robert Duvall.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, we're watching it. And there's a scene where they're hiding from somebody, so they quickly pull into like an overhang and turn off their lights, right? Mm-hmm. You turn off the car. And the lights turn off. And I realized you can't do that anymore to evade anybody because there's the running lamps and day lamps and whatnot on vehicles now. And you shut them off. And the newer vehicles, the lights stay on for a couple minutes. I guess ostensibly so that you can see when you walk away from the car in the dark.
Yeah. Even my ancient minivan has that. When you turn the car off, the dome light comes on. Uh-huh. And it stays on until I don't know what.
So I realize if you're planning on doing something wrong, there's probably mechanisms to shut all that off ahead of time. But if somebody's after it, because that's how my mom evaded that serial killer, was to pull off and quickly shut everything off so that he didn't see her. And I was realizing we would be fucking dead if her car had been a modern car. So what the hell do you do about that? It freaked me out a little bit, basically, is what I'm saying, is that I was like, holy shit, we'd be dead if it was a modern car.
Well, it's funny because
she would be, and who knows what he would have done to a baby.
I just, a book I just read this week involves the dome light in someone's car.
Yeah.
For a totally different reason. He gets in, and what the hell was it? I'm like, which book was that? It was Connolly. Yeah, Chasing the Dime by Michael Connolly. He gets in the car and the light doesn't come on.
Uh-huh.
And he reaches up and he's like, wait a minute. And he realizes, and it's a fancy car. So he realizes there are 3 settings. You can have it on all the time, off all the time, or turns on when you open the car door and then shuts off. And he realizes it's been changed. And it is a key plot point because many pages later, he stops and thinks, wait a minute, what if someone didn't search my car to take something out?
What if they're inside my car? No.
No. What if they put something, what if they left something? And it was an incriminating piece of evidence they planted on him.
Okay.
And that was how he found it.
See, I love a little plot point like that plays off something simple. I mean, we had to learn the whole dome light thing going to drive-ins for years, because if you have to get out to go to the bathroom and you turn on your light, everybody in your vicinity is going to hate your guts.
Yes.
So, I mean, we were able to turn that off. But, yeah. I just think it's funny, like, if a woman got into a car and realized her dome light would be changed, the thought would be, is there somebody in the back of the
seat.
car?
Now,
and a dude didn't think that?
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, I will say it was a small car. I think it was a sports car, and it was in the... Was it in the daytime? I can't remember if it was daytime or not. I always look in my back seat before I get in the car.
Oh, yeah. We've all been trained to do that.
Yeah. I don't look under the car.
No, even though there was that whole,
glance,
if somebody's hiding under your car, they'll split, they cut your Achilles tendon or whatever. And then that was the thing, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, I walked up to the car. I saw underneath it as I was walking up to it. I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always check the back, especially because as a teenager, I was working until 2, 3 in the morning at the movie theater, and I was driving my parents' giant fucking van.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, me and my brother each went under one of the seats to sneak into the drive-in. So because we had to pay per person at the drive-in, it's now Walmart. But it was here near the Citadel Mall in Colorado Springs when I was a kid and a teenager. And so they don't want to pay per person. So they had a bunch of little kids that would have been free. And then us biggins that would have cost money were hidden under the seats.
Oh, yeah.
And there were still 3 children in the car. So the people weren't like, why are you in this big fucking van? Except I used to go, I'd go with a friend or something in the van. It was comfortable.
Y'all were fancy. We stuck people in the trunk to get into the drive-in.
Well, we didn't have a trunk in the van.
But it was like you would pull over before you got there.
Yeah. That's what we would do to get us under the seats.
Yeah, I never had to get in the trunk, but...
I think I recall my parents talking about, doing that with friends.
Yeah.
So, when we lived in Oregon, I lived there till I was 7, we were going to drive-ins there, too, and I just remember they'd put a little blanket out, and I'd sit out on the blanket and have my snack and watch the movie. I don't even remember any movies I saw there.
The first time we took the girls to a drive-in, which was in Buny, we took the 2 big lawn chairs, and we had popcorn, and we had blankets for them, and they were just fucking thrilled.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
They would hand me a candy. They would get me a candy from the box of concessions, or we'd probably buy it ahead of time.
Yeah.
We were the ones that snuck in the bag of popcorn, which is funny because we were a movie theater family. My mom had managed theaters for years.
But usually at a drive-in, they don't care so much. No. Because it's like, what are we going to do? Search every car that comes in?
This isn't an effort we want to put in.
No.
The one down in Pueblo is still open. Jeff and I both have night vision issues now. And the drive between Pueblo and Colorado Springs, for people who don't know, at night is pitch fucking black. It's all wildlife might run across the road.
It might.
And it's deer in particular, but shit ton of wildlife.
Antelopes.
Yeah. I have yet to get a picture of an antelope. I've seen them a billion times, but it's always when I'm driving, because they all hang out. They hang out at the gun range and Fort Carson. That's by the interstate. They hang out at the airport.
Yeah.
I've seen them there a billion times. And then we drove past them on the way to the cabin last time, but we're always driving and it's always somewhere I can't pull over.
That's how I felt about elk in
in Estes?
Estes Park. I'd be like, people are like, did you see all those elk when on the drive-in? I'm like, no. For the longest time, I'm like, I don't think there are any fucking elk here at all.
I once drove past what must have been a herd of about 40 or 50 fucking elk on the way in there, and on that mountain road right before you go over the hill.
Yep, I know where you mean.
So I have gotten a shit ton of the moose was my white whale.
Yes.
But now an antelope is my white whale. I photographed a bear.
Drive up Constitution Hills. And turn left
and there they are.
24. They're all over.
It's just funny because I've seen them on the moose that I was like, I just want to see a fucking moose in person. And now I have. But the antelope, I see them over and over, and I'm never in a position to I'm driving. usually.
That was after I started seeing them finally in Estes Park. I couldn't take a picture because I was always driving. Or it was the park ranger would say, "See up there on that peak," and I'm like, "How fucking young do I look to you? No, I can't see that. I would need binoculars to see that."
My ultimate white whale around here would probably be a mountain lion.
Yes.
But it would have to be a very specific situation for me not to be like dead if I saw one of them in person.
For you to be able to get a picture
That's
of it.
right. Instead of being like, oh, shit. Yeah. Which isn't unheard of.
That's true. We have friends who post pictures.
Yeah.
They try to remember. It might have been Barb Nicholas.
Maria Faulkner has posted a bunch. Yeah. There's a bunch of people who see them, and that's great. But I would like to see one without it eating my cats.
I agree. I just want to give a shout out because Barb Nicholas has a new book out. I can't remember the name of it, but I will look it up. I am such a toad today.
We're both functioning on. Really, the last few podcasts we've both been functioning on just one of our cylinders is out per. Oh well,
my carburetor needs to be tuned.
Absolutely,
we'll go with that.
That's what the break is for, folks.
Yes, but Barb Nicholas has a new book out because she did a signing yesterday. I couldn't go because I had to work. I will look it up and I will put it in on the Facebook page when this comes out.
Okay.
But it was a first reads pick for Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime members, you get a free book every month. Hers was one of the free books for November, and I didn't realize
I'm getting a free book every month. Amazon hasn't told me I'm getting a free book every month.
Are you
I have Prime? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure everybody. Well, I will look at it and
motherfuckers.
Yeah, because they send you a little list, and there's like 6 or 7, and you get to pick one.
Nope.
I
feel robbed.
You should, because that's a big book. I got her new book. I've gotten a couple of. I got I can't remember anybody's name, but I've gotten some good books there.
Cool. Nice for you.
I am getting the stink eye of doom right now. What else did you watch this week? Let's change the subject.
I watched a Christmas movie.
I find that hard to believe.
I know, it's absolutely stunning, and it wasn't Die Hard, but here's what's fun about it. So it's called Love Hard, and it's got Nina Dobrev in it, which is why I looked it up. It's on Netflix.
I've heard of this, yeah.
She was in Vampire Diaries, so I was like, I'll check it out, because I hadn't seen her in a while. And so she gets catfished.
That one!
I guess you've seen the ads on Netflix.
I've seen the ads and I want to watch that.
It's cute.
Is it?
Yeah. So she gets catfished and she's texting with him and they get along just magically. And it's funny because his favorite Christmas movie is, what's the one that everybody loves that's a big stupid romance and it has Alan Rickman? Actually? Yes, Love Actually. I guess I just told you how I feel about Love Actually. I don't understand why it's so popular, but hey, I love Alan Rickman. So he says that's the best Christmas movie, and her response is, wanna guess it?
Ew?
No, Die Hard is the best Christmas movie. So they have this whole thing, and it's fun. So anyway, he says, I wish I could see you for Christmas. They haven't met. There's this whole set of pictures of this rugged, good-looking guy. And she decides she's going to surprise him. Shows up at his house, and he is...
# not a good idea.
No. And he is not the picture. And so, of course, it's going to be the whole, she has to come around and realize that she liked the person emotionally, not looksy. But anyway, the person whose pictures he was posting is somebody he knows in town.
That's hilarious.
So then he feels bad. So he starts trying to set her up with this other person. But like nothing meshes in person. And she's becoming a different person to like this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a whole thing. But the Die Hard thing and Love Actually amused me. And also, I posted a meme, and it was, if you watch Die Hard after Love Actually, Alan Rickman gets his for what he did in Love Actually.
Yes, I did enjoy that.
So, yeah, that's what I watched. What about you?
I like it. Well, I finally saw, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation because it's just where my head is today, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings on
Ah,
Disney.
yes, I've heard about it a lot.
And I really did enjoy it.
Okay.
It had
I've heard it's good.
It was. I thought it was very good. And, you've got your villains, you've got everything, but so I highly recommend. That's on Disney Plus. But what that led me to, because Awkwafina is in it. I love seeing her in anything, but I love seeing her in something a little bit more serious where she can't be rude.
Oh, really?
Because I like it because it shows that she has the chops.
Oh, yeah. So Ryan Reynolds proved he had chops, and then he went back to being Ryan Reynolds, and that made me happy. And so that's probably how I'd feel about Awkwafina. Okay, cool. Cool. You can act. Now be funny.
Yes. So that led me to her series. Awkwafina is Nora from Queens.
Huh.
Have you seen that?
No.
Oh my God, you would love it. She's graduated from college. Oh, I think she's
Is it on Disney Plus?
No, I can't remember which service it's on. It might be on Netflix and it might be on Amazon Prime. But she's like 30. She's living at home with her father and her grandmother. Her grandmother is a stitch.
Okay.
Absolutely. That actress is killing it because she gives it right back. Her dad is he seems kind of absent-minded sometimes, but then he really is paying attention and he really does love his daughter. And she's just trying to figure out what she's doing with her life.
Okay.
And I can't tell you anything else without giving it away.
But it's funny.
It's hilarious.
Okay.
It's a little half-hour comedy, very not suitable for work.
Cool. I like things that are not safe for work.
I can't believe you haven't seen. I saw one thing before you did.
And where is it?
I don't know. It's on one of them. It's on Netflix or
okay.
Amazon Prime. I will look that up so I can put it in the notes.
But her name is in the title. It's Awkwafina.
Yes,
Nora
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Awkwafina is Nora from Queens. I'm pretty sure if you type Awkwafina in a search engine or in the TV search, it'll come up.
It'll come up. I think you can usually look at IMDb and see where something is.
Yes.
So much easier than logging out of one and into another.
Well, see, I've got the remote. All I have to do is say, and it'll go, do you want to watch this on Netflix? Well, yes, I do. Thank you, computer.
My God, you have a technology I don't possess?
I find that really hard to believe.
We do. That's rude. I'm going to tell Jeffrey. I'm going to tell him he's let me down.
It's the Amazon Fire Stick thing. That's the remote that it connects to all of them.
Cool.
So you just have one remote and you just talk to it.
All right.
Though sometimes it can't understand me. But Awkwafina, there aren't that many, so it's pretty easy to find her.
Yeah, there are days it probably wouldn't understand me, but...
And I finally watched the Hitmen series with Sue and Mel from the Great British Baking Show. Oh my God.
As a fan of theirs, did you like it?
Loved it.
Good.
They've had several chat shows.
Oh.
That was the one I couldn't get. It kept coming up Hitman instead of Hitmen. Uh-huh. And the Hitman's bodyguard, the Hitman's wife's bodyguard, or the whatever. And I kept going, no! So I finally had to say Sue Perkins. And then, bing, came right up.
Okay.
So that is quite delightful.
Yeah, they're just the blonde. I don't know which is which because I don't watch Great British Baking
I can't remember
Show.
which is which.
Okay. The blonde is such a fucking flake in that. And it's so funny, though, because everything she does is funny. And the other one's kind of, the straight man to the goofy person. The one that can do things a little bit better.
And it was hilarious to me. The blonde is talking about, her boyfriend is so boring.
Oh my God, yes.
And then he shows up.
And he's gorgeous and he's sweet and he's cooking her food.
Yeah, he's bringing her homemade soup.
Yes, and she's like, ugh, can you believe this guy?
And the other woman is like, wow.
I don't know, watching it, and then like a few episodes later, she I don't really feel it to spoil her. She's dumped him. It's clear she's going to. Because she's just so disgusted and he's just so over the top and annoying and he's not. And Jeff's like, wait, why did she break up with him? And I'm like, because she couldn't stand him. He's like, seriously? So yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculously funny.
It is.
The situations they get themselves into, the arch enemy.
Yes,
blonde
that woman.
lady with the
Yes.
poor sweet dude that's also kind of dumb.
Yes.
And she's like, shut up.
And he's like, oh, when the birthday party, I'll try to come later.
Yeah.
He's kind of, he's very goofy and sweet.
He is. So, and it was several episodes in before I realized that their archenemy was the only American. Did you notice the woman was American?
I did notice that.
I didn't really process for me because I think it's a BBC show originally, but
yeah,
I was just like, wait, oh, that's funny. It's like a little extra funny that their archenemy there is like an American hitman there. If you're thinking of starting a podcast or even just starting to research it, Buzzsprout is your go-to source for information and hosting. They have tons of videos and write-ups on everything you need to know about recording and distributing a podcast, and they even provide easy ways to get analytics on how your podcast is doing. We use Buzzsprout for our podcast hosting, and through them we've been able to connect with tons of resources and distributors. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and help support our show. A win-win. Not only do they help you get started, but they also do small things to encourage you, such as awarding you badges as you hit various milestones. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. All right, I'm going to go first. So this is part 2 of Stockholm Syndrome, which will end up being kind of funny in the end, and you'll see why. But because, I learned things. I learned more things.
I love it when I learn things.
All right, my sources, FBI.gov, Wikipedia, biography.com, and How Stuff Works, funnily enough. It's actually a really good article on a specific thing that's going to come up. Okay. On April 15th, 1974, an heiress that had been kidnapped months before was caught on tape robbing a bank in San Francisco. She wore a hat, called herself Tanya, held a semi-automatic rifle, and screamed orders to the bank employees and customers, shocking a nation that had been rooting for her safe return. So where did this start? I ask you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Patricia, or Patty, although she has since said repeatedly she would prefer to be called Patricia, so from here on out I will try and do that. Hearst was born February 20th, 1954 in San Francisco, which kind of surprised me. I don't know. I guess I thought she would have been like an East Coaster. But anyway, her grandfather was William Randolph Hearst, and she was the middle child of 5 girls. That was crazy. Like, I'm sorry.
That's a lot of hormones.
I'm sorry for having 5 girls. 5 to anything. Like, I come from a family of 5, but it was kind of balanced. Not really. 3 boys in the middle is not balanced. That's a lie. Okay. Ask my sister, who had 3 older brothers.
I would say your particular 3 brothers are not balanced in any
God,
way.
no. I know. I feel so bad for my sister. Not a problem for me. I was older and out. While attending Berkeley and living in an apartment with her fiancé, Hearst was kidnapped from her apartment by the Symbionese Liberation Army, or the SLA, which is way easier to say, and so that's mostly what I'm going to say. She was 19 years old at the time. Faced with guns, her fiancé beaten to a pulp, Hearst found herself in the trunk of a car.
Not going to a drive-in movie.
That is correct. She was not being snuck into a movie, which was a great disappointment when she came to.
I'm sure.
The full name of the SLA was the United Federated Forces of the Symbionese Liberation Army. Wikipedia defines it as an American left-wing organization. They're considered the first domestic terrorist group belonging to the political left in the U.S. They were fighting for the peaceful existence of all races and genders, and were fighting racism, anti-feminism, and capitalism, which all sounds great. But as with many of these groups, like, the more I looked into them, I was like, oh, bullshit.
I was like, but you're fighting it by kidnapping people?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Their leader was a black man named Donald DeFreeze, who based their principles and symbol on Kwanzaa.
Okay.
DeFreeze went by the name General Field Marshal Sink, or Sinke, having formed the group... That was very loud. Having formed the group after escaping Soledad State Prison. The name Sink was... Sinke, god damn it. I don't know what it is. Was inspired by the man who led the slave rebellion on the Amistad.
Oh.
A slave ship. He was inspired by another left-wing group called the Venceremos organization. They did prison visits.
Okay.
Clearly that was a Spanish, South American organization. The SLA was a violent group. They actually murdered people they considered fascists. For example, their first victim was a school superintendent they killed with cyanide-tipped hollow point bullets in 1973. He was a fascist to them because he briefly supported requiring ID cards in his school district, something they all do now.
Wow.
Right? This group, purporting to be about equality, killed a man who was the first black superintendent in Oakland history. See, that to me, because he wanted to, and by the way, they found out after he was dead, he wasn't even supporting it anymore. He changed his mind. It's just, I was like, really? That was a good reason to kill somebody?
They were cyanide-tipped bullets?
Yep. Hollow point bullets dipped in cyanide.
Is that not overkill?
It's all overkill. But yeah, I guess the point was you shoot him, and if the bullet doesn't kill him, because of course you're not, unlike in the movie, you're not guaranteed to kill somebody if you shoot them. But if they've got cyanide in there too, I guess they just figured that would finish him off, perhaps. Or their murder of the superintendent, Marcus Foster, resulted in 2 members being arrested. To get them out, DeFreeze and the SLA decided they needed to kidnap someone important and use them to get their counterparts out of prison. And luckily for them, the Hearst family had announced Patty's engagement, engagement in the San Francisco Chronicle Society section, and they had even put their address.
Because they used to do that.
That's terrifying.
Oh, yeah. If you look at old newspaper articles, Mr. and Mrs. John Jones of 14 Main Street announced the engagement of their daughter.
And I imagine they did that with baby announcements, too, yeah? Sounds like a really good way to get your baby kidnapped, but okay. So stupid. The shit we learned, I guess, over time. Yes. Thus, on February 4th, 1974, Patty was kidnapped, setting into motion a strange set of occurrences. When their demands to have their comrades released from prison failed, they instead set her ransom as being a food distribution program worth millions of dollars. This was done with varying degrees of success. There's like a whole thing about it, and I decided not to go into it. But instead of a release, a videotape came out April 3rd. So bear in mind, she was kidnapped. Oh, shit. February 4th.
Okay.
April 3rd. And the video, she said she had joined the fight to free the oppressed. That's a quote from FBI.gov. Days later, she committed the robbery with the SLA. On May 16th, 1974, a couple SLA members attempted to shoplift at a sporting goods store. Hearst was waiting in their van, and when the manager chased the members out of the store, Hearst shot the storefront over the manager's head with her semi-automatic, so she was just... They weren't able to get back to their van safely, so they hijacked 2 cars, which I tried to find out more about that. Like, does that mean that one of them was in one car and 2 of them in the other? It's what it sounds like. And they kept the drivers in the vehicles with them. Their getaway van led authorities to one of their safe houses with the license plate before the 3 were able to get back. A shootout ensued, leading to a fire that killed 5 SLA members, including DeFreeze.
Oh.
So 6, including DeFreeze. It was 5 in him. It wouldn't be until September 18th, 1975 that she would be arrested. By then, she had helped make explosives, been involved in another bank robbery where a woman was shot and killed, not by her. There were already warrants out for her arrest after the incident at the sporting goods store, but her felonies were racking up now, right? During her booking, and she had, by the way, just completely lost the sympathy. The cops were after her, the FBI was after her, and the people were like, well, she's turned. She's a terrible person. Fuck her, I guess. So anyway, during her booking, she had to list her occupation, which she put down as urban guerrilla, as in Guerilla. She had her attorney release a statement saying, quote, tell everybody that I'm smiling, that I feel free and strong, and I send my greetings and love to all the sisters and brothers out there, end quote. When asked why she had turned and fought with the SLA, she said that for the first 2 weeks of her being held captive, she was kept in a closet, bound and blindfolded. They had removed her only for the meals, so she could come out, but she had to keep her blindfold on and eat in a room of them, and then they'd put her back in. DeFreeze threatened her life constantly. In the second week, they started allowing her to join discussions, though she was still not allowed to remove the blindfold, so for weeks she was in a blindfold.
Ugh.
Or in a closet with the blindfold on and her hands tied. Being a student at Berkeley at the time, to me, it would make sense that she would have opinions that matched a lot of what they were saying on fascism, racism, feminism, capitalism. Like, that seems to me something that in the 70s, college students would be really with them, right? And her family was known as infamous for being anti-communist and all of this.
Right.
So after those first 2 weeks, they continued locking her in the closet, but this time they gave her a flashlight and political tracts to study. So their propaganda, allowing her to remove the blindfold once the door was closed. So she still hadn't seen these people. She knew their voices. Finally, DeFries told her that she could either join them or they were going to kill her.
Well,
she was given time to decide what she wanted to do, and ultimately, shockingly, she chose life. And again, I could see going, well, my principles align with theirs in certain ways.
Yeah.
At this point, she was finally allowed to see her captors, and now they were her partners in crime. This is when her training started, which consisted of daily drills and lessons. They started teaching her how to handle weapons, and during this time, she was also raped repeatedly by Willie Wolfe and DeFries.
Oh.
She was quoted as saying, quote, "I accommodated my thoughts to coincide with theirs," end quote. Which, again, does make sense to me. She was like, for my survival, I have to start thinking like them. I have to get with them.
I totally get that.
Her training complete, they perpetrated the robbery on April 15th, 1974, and that brings us back around to where we started. During her time with the SLA, she had dropped from 110 pounds to 87 by the time they arrested her. Her IQ had dropped from 130 to 112. She had been tested before.
Wow.
So these were clear signs of abuse. She was now a smoker. She had constant nightmares, and she
PTSD.
showed plenty of other signs of trauma.
Yes.
Unfortunately for her, brainwashing was not considered a legal defense, and there was no precedent for it. This wasn't the only uphill battle she faced during the trial. The judge, Oliver Carter, who technically should have recused himself due to having a working relationship with someone on the prosecution, showed bias throughout. Whenever the defense spoke, he would rest his eyes. I'm doing some quotes around that.
Oh my God.
So he'd just close his eyes and just shut down to show them that he had no respect for them. He struck down objections by the defense team. He even allowed prosecution witnesses to discuss the fact that she'd had previous sexual relationships. Clearly she was living with her fiancé. Clearly she had had sex.
What does that have to do with fucking anything?
It was intended to strike down her accusations of rape, which the prosecution repeatedly said she willingly had sex with them. It's bullshit because she'd had sex before that she would have been raped. Hearst was still in a near zombified state during her trial, and that's how one of her early psychiatrists explained her. Just the lights are out. She's not doing well. She was lethargic on the stand, which was used against her. And in fact, her defense attorney was criticized for allowing her to testify in the first place in the condition she was in. Though he would claim that the judge had made promises about her Fifth Amendment rights, he'd said that it wouldn't be recorded, they'd remove the jury for portions of her testimony, etc. And he, of course, later went back on that. He did not follow anything that he promised.
Flaming pile.
It's terrible. He was terrible.
Shit.
It's important to note here that the lead FBI investigator on the case testified in court that there were photographs from that first robbery showing the other SLA members pointing guns at her at times. So the lead investigator actually testified, kind of defending her. He appeared to believe she'd been coerced, at least in the early crimes. March 20th, 1976, Patricia Hearst was found guilty on a charge of bank robbery and using a firearm during the commission of a felony. Judge Carter gave her 35 years in prison, which was the maximum at the time. However, there was a final sentence hearing done, and he'd said that might change, and Judge Carter ended up dying before that final sentence, so a new judge came in, Judge William Orrick, and he gave her 7 years instead. But this wasn't, there was no, I don't know why he lowered it, because his opinion, here's his quote, "Rebellious young people who, for whatever reason, become revolutionaries and voluntarily commit criminal acts will be punished." End quote. During her time in prison, she suffered ill health and was kept in solitary confinement for her protection. She was given bail to appear at court during her appeals. When the appeals failed, they put her back in prison. And when she was out on bail for the court stuff, her family had to provide her bodyguards because there are people who wanted to kill her. In the meantime, she was up for charges in the sporting goods store robbery. She pleaded no contest, and Judge Talbot Callister gave her probation. He actually made a statement showing he felt she had been coerced due to torture. So this judge felt for her.
Right.
The Harrises, the couple who had perpetrated the sporting goods store robbery, were up for charges throughout this too, including for her kidnapping, because they were really the only ones left, because the 6 people had died in the fire. And they ended up getting convicted for a lesser charge because there's kidnapping for ransom, there's kidnapping with bodily harm, and they just got simple kidnapping.
Yes.
So, they were treated leniently. The day they were arraigned, Hearst found a dead rat on her pillow and was put back in solitary to protect her. She was a rat. And the funny thing is, she was so ill that she was supposed to testify against them, but she was so ill that she wasn't able to, and they still called her a rat. The Harrises did receive convictions for her kidnapping, and that was it. Like, they just didn't get in trouble for, like, anything else. They got lesser than she did, you know? I mean, ultimately, she got the 7 instead of and they got 8. But it just seems crazy that with everything that they were involved in, they were like, oh, you guys are fine. But this bitch right here, you know? Like, as an interesting aside, Representative Leo Ryan, people may remember that and be like, I don't know why I know that name, had been passing around a petition to get her released from prison. He was the representative who went to Guyana to visit Jonestown and was shot down and killed by Jones's men. Therefore, the petition didn't get completed. After the truth about Jonestown hit the media, John Wayne made a statement questioning how people could accept that Jim Jones had brainwashed hundreds of people into committing suicide, but couldn't buy that a teenage girl kidnapped forcibly from her apartment and brainwashed into committing robberies. Like, that's not possible, but this dude can easily brainwash 600 people.
John Wayne?
John Wayne.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised by that because, you know, I've heard a lot bad about him, even though my mom grew up loving him and my father-in-law. On February 1st, 1979, President Jimmy Carter commuted her sentence. He considered the 22 months she served to be good enough, and she was released on probation with a lot of conditions. So even though he commuted it, it came with a lot. Once out of prison, she got married to one of the police officers who had been her bodyguard during her time bailed out, Bernard Shaw. It was funny because I was like, I looked to see if, like, what was it? Whitney Houston's in it, Kevin Costner. It's like The Bodyguard or something like that. Yeah, it's The Bodyguard. Okay, I was like, is that based on this? And no, it wasn't. They had 2 girls together. She has acted, including in several John Waters films, written books, helped with an AIDS Foundation, and more. Here's the funny thing about me. Bearing in mind, I was born 2 years after or 3, whatever. I was born in 1977, so I didn't grow up hearing about Patty Hearst much. And then, of course, it becomes that collective osmosis later in life. But I'm a John Waters fan. So I read this and I was like, wait, I have to go look. Because I saw pictures of her while I was doing the research. And I'm like, yeah, she looks familiar to me, but I'm sure I've seen these pictures. So I go and look and like Crybaby, which I've watched 1 billion fucking times because Johnny Depp, hello.
Oh, God,
he's really hot in that movie. And she's the mom of the girl that he's after or whatever. And I was like, holy shit. Like this whole time I had no idea that it was her in these John Waters films. So mind blown, right? Which everybody else knew. I get that. But I was like, oh. So there you go. January 20th, 2001, President Bill Clinton pardoned her as one of his final acts on his last day in office. Her husband died in 2013. So, this being part 2 of a Stockholm Syndrome, you may have noticed there's no mention of Stockholm Syndrome here. Funnily enough, when researching Stockholm Syndrome, her name came up repeatedly. However, in researching her, the syndrome rarely came up because, I mean, I said what it takes to make Stockholm Syndrome last time. Kindness from your captors is how it happens. So her case is considered to be actual purposeful brainwashing, which is not Stockholm Syndrome. And in fact, the vehicle she was in during the carjacking after the sporting goods store robbery attempt had a male driver, right? And he, when the time came, did not want to get her in trouble for kidnapping because she was so nice and kept checking on him throughout it. And I was like, that's akin to Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes.
You know, like it wasn't to that extent. It was just a little, you know, but still I was like, that's closer to Stockholm Syndrome than what she had. So personally, I imagine the combination of telling her she would die if she didn't come around to their way of thinking, plus the fact that she probably even agreed with some of their principles, and considering what they claimed to be fighting for, which I think they were really stretching, helped brainwash her into thinking she had no choice but to do what she had been trained to do. Even with the attempted robbery of the sporting goods store, she stated that they had trained her repeatedly in how to deal with similar circumstances, someone coming after SLA members, and that she reacted out of instinct. We see this type of training with our military and police officers where they're drilled repeatedly on responses. That's why they do the drills they do until they become second nature. That's the point. They don't want it to have to rely on having to sit there and noodle out whatever's happening. So my question is, why is it so hard to believe the same could be done with a 19-year-old girl forcibly kidnapped from her home, raped, tormented, threatened, and trained?
Well, I mean, think about being locked in a closet and locked in the closet is one thing, but being blindfolded
it's sensory deprivation.
Yes, for 2 weeks.
If you read about sensory deprivation and how impactful that is on people, you can make somebody go crazy if you do full sensory deprivation, like in a water tank and, Mm-hmm. So anyway, I feel like, wouldn't this mean that training was more likely to stick than when they're drilling it into people who aren't under threat? So, as for whether brainwashing is the same as Stockholm Syndrome or vice versa, it's tricky. Stockholm Syndrome can be seen as a type of brainwashing in that the person comes around to identifying with the captor and their principles or intentions. But, like I said above, this is done through kind treatment. Brainwashing is a much wider term. In terms of victimology, Hearst was compared to POWs who were brainwashed in the Korean War. It uses something called thought reform. It's done in 3 different ways: persuasion, compliance, and education. Compliance involves changing behavior, but not attitudes or beliefs. Persuasion involves changing the attitude. Education, which is also known as propaganda, tries to change beliefs. So it's all considered something called social influence. In working psychology, it's defined in this way. Quote, brainwashing is a severe form of social influence that combines all of these approaches to cause changes in someone's way of thinking without that person's consent and often against his will. Which, hello, social media. Anyway, that was from that. I got that quote from How Stuff Works. They had a whole thing on brainwashing. It's very fascinating. It's a multi-part. It goes much more into depth on the POWs and stuff like that. So anyway, requirements in brainwashing are complete isolation and dependency of the subject. So usually seen in prison camps and physically isolated cults. Brainwasher has to have complete control, including all basic human needs. Yep. If you're in a closet, you need somebody to take you to the bathroom. You need somebody to make sure you get fed. Brainwasher breaks down the identity of their victim until it no longer exists, then replaces it with their preferred behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs. In some definitions, there must be a threat of physical harm, but other definitions believe in non-physical coercion. To me, I believe in the non-physical coercion. I don't think there has to be a physical threat. Otherwise, cults wouldn't be considered brainwashing. So, to me, that is brainwashing. So, that's the school of thought I'm in. Interestingly, it is most commonly felt that brainwashing is temporary, and once out from under the control of the brainwasher, the subject will return to their original identity, meaning it wasn't completely removed, only hidden. This holds out when looking at it from the lens of Hearst. As within months of being in prison, she made statements removing herself from the SLA and their beliefs. At first, when they got her, it was still in there, and then she is isolated from them, and she's able to start getting back to who she was. A more recent case involving brainwashing as a defense was that of Lee Boyd Malvo, one of the DC snipers, who claimed that the much older John Allen Muhammad brainwashed him into believing there was a race war coming, and that he needed to train Malvo to help him fight in it. Just as with Patty Hearst, the jury didn't buy it, and he was found guilty. It all boils down to what people believe. There will always be people who don't believe Hearst was coerced in any way and that she committed the crimes of her own free will. Each individual has to decide what they think. For me, I find the brainwashing excuse to be compelling and rational. As we've seen, Patricia Hearst has lived a straight-laced and positive life since she got out of prison. And I'm sorry, a prison doesn't reform.
No.
That's what the claim is that it's supposed to do. It doesn't do that, hasn't done that for a long time. And out from under the control of the SLA, she became herself again. And I believe people will do a lot in order to live when under threat for their lives. So she was told repeatedly, even in the actions she took afterwards, they told her, if you counter us later, we will hunt you down and we will kill you. So had she not defended them, say in the sporting goods shooting, she believed they would come after her.
Yeah, but
there was still imminent threat.
Yes, because they weren't all dead in the fire yet.
No.
So
yeah, I actually came close to being like, okay, brainwashing part 2. So I will do the DC Snipers next season.
Okay. Well, since you were talking about Patty Hearst, I decided, I don't know how this came about. There's so many threads in what you were talking about that are going to play out in our next, in this episode and in the next 2 that I'm just like, this is just crazy. So I'm going to talk about John Paul Getty III, who was kidnapped. There is so much. Okay, the sources, because I boiled them down, because I was getting a lot of similar information. Wikipedia, Town and Country Magazine, and Rolling Stone Magazine, because there was do I have his name? Of course not. There's a famous, and I think it's in here somewhere, interviewer who actually interviewed John Paul Getty III after the kidnapping. It was on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Cool.
So we'll get to that. There's so much background. So I am going to drastically abbreviate the background.
Yeah.
Because we could talk for days about the Getty family. And Getty Images, that's this family.
Yeah.
So
You're a pain in my ass.
Okay, so we're going to start with J. Paul Getty. He was born in 1892. He's the kind of the founder of this dynasty. He was born in 1892 in Minneapolis. He died in 1976 at the age of 83. He was married 5 times for 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, 4 years, and then 19 years. And the last marriage ended when his wife died. So between 1958 and when he passed away, he wasn't married. He had 5 children. And this is when you look at this family, they're married many times and have quite a few children. So he had 5 children. Founded Getty Oil Company in 1942. In 1956 and 57, he was the richest man in the world. On the whole fucking planet. The whole little blue marble. He was it. He was the top. He had the most money. He had the most toys. He was an avid collector of art and antiques and notoriously frugal. I mean, he left...
that's what I honestly think that's how some of these people get to where they are and stay where they are.
But he drove a very hard bargain when he was collecting all of the art and antiques. He was very much he dickered, bargained for the price, and endowed museums and foundations, and there's no question about that. But he had a payphone involved in his castle. Okay, he had a fucking castle. For guests and staff to use.
Oh.
Yeah. He was also, besides being rich and notoriously frugal, he was also notoriously horny.
Yeah, well.
He could not stop.
I was just wiggling around outside his pants all the time.
It was, he was sexually active with a large variety of women, thanks to experimental drugs, pretty much right up until his death.
Yeah.
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 Proto Viagra, I guess. They gave the name of the drug, and it was not important because I went, "What is that?" And I looked it up, and I was like, "It had to do with histamines," and I was like, "No, that is a rabbit hole I am going to say no to."
Well, now I'm fascinated.
You can look it up. So, John Paul Getty Jr. was born to J. Paul and his 4th wife, Anne Rourke, in 1932. They divorced in 1936, and Anne remarried in 1938 and moved the family to San Francisco. So Junior got a good education. He was drafted, I believe, but he served in Korea, and he married his first wife, Abigail Harris, in 1956. John Paul III was born in November of that year. The two had 4 children together and divorced in 1964. On a total side note, oh my God, with his second wife, he had a son who was named Tara Gabriel Gramophone Galaxy Getty. The look on Shannon's face is why I included that. I was like, Gramophone Galaxy Getty. I was just like...
Good God.
Yeah. The first name is Tara. So I just was like...
So he started that trend, did he?
Apparently.
Rich people naming their kids stupid shit?
Yeah. So, John Paul Getty III was born in 1956, and he spent most of his childhood in Rome, as his father was, at this point, heading the Italian branch of the Getty oil business. He was 8 years old when his parents divorced, and his father and his stepmother, who was a famous model at that time, Talitha Paul, or Pole, it was spelled P-O-L, they went full 60s, full force into the 60s counterculture, alternative lifestyle thing. including a little heroin addiction they picked up in Thailand.
Nice.
So John Paul III, which sounds like a pope.
Yes.
I just called him 3 throughout in my notes. It just says 3.
JP3.
JP3. He remained in Rome with his mother attending school. Just to give you a little timeline of what this kid's life must have been like. In July of 1971, his stepmother died of a drug overdose. When the stepmom and the dad had divorced or were getting divorced because she wanted to get clean and he did not. He was contented being a drug addict. But there was some question about her death. So his dad, John Paul II, fled back to England to escape any charges in Italy. So in 1972, JP3 was expelled from St. George's British International School in Rome. He had printed some rather colorful expletives about the headmaster in 6-foot-high letters in a school hallway. Yeah. So that was the last of the 7 or 8 schools he had been thrown out of. Boy. He had later commented, that was no big deal. I mean, if it had been like 15 or 16, that would be a lot, but 7 or 8 was no biggie.
Seems to recall for normal people, like 2 or 3 is really unfortunate.
So at the age of 15, he's living on his own in a squat, frequenting nightclubs, and attending left-wing demonstrations. He also was offered and accepted $1,000, or the Italian equivalent of $1,000, to pose nude for an Italian adult magazine called Playman, which was the equivalent. They equated themselves to Playboy.
Okay.
So why would they want a naked man on the cover? I don't get it either. And it wasn't even a naked man, it's a naked boy.
They would need to name it Playwoman, because Playgirl was the one with naked boys.
Yes, but this was Playman. He's 15 years old, and because he's a Getty, and he's a Playboy, and...
15
years old. When the
Italy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, at 3 a.m. on July 10th, 1973... 16 years old, he is kidnapped from the Piazza Farnese in Rome, and I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation. His girlfriend at the time said he had considered having himself kidnapped to get money from his family because his grandfather, who controlled all the money, was infamously tight with a dime. She said he had discarded the idea because the two of them were picking up work. He had a film role coming up. They were both getting work as models. He was tall, curly red hair. I don't know what the girlfriend looked like, but he was he's a skinny 16-year-old. But anyway, he was blindfolded and driven away, eventually to be stashed in a cave in the Calabria region in southern Italy.
Groovy. In a cave.
Well, then when I read and some of this is for the sake of brevity, it wasn't a cave. I mean, he was put in they moved him around a lot. And it was usually they tucked him in a cave. Once it was in a hut. Once it was in what sounded like a lean-to shed that they shackled his ankle to. They also blindfolded him a lot of the time because then they removed his blindfold, but they were all wearing masks.
All right.
So
same sort of thing. We don't want you. Well, I mean, the thing is, you should be happy when they wear masks.
Yes,
or blindfold
and he said he was.
Because then they might be actually letting you go eventually. Yes. It didn't work that way for Patty.
No.
Patricia.
So his mother, a few days later, his mother receives a note in the mail from him. Dear mother, and this is a quote, Dear mother, I have fallen into the hands of kidnappers. Don't let me be killed. Make sure that the police do not interfere. You must absolutely not take this as a joke. Don't give any publicity to my kidnapping. So they didn't believe it.
Yeah.
They didn't take it seriously. They were pretty sure it was just, he was just pranking them or he was just trying to get money. So the kidnappers sent 2 more letters and made a phone call to his mother with a demand for $17 million for his safe return. And she directed them to call her lawyer. There was a phone call. There were letters sent to the lawyer. There was a phone call to the lawyer. The amount changed. It was, so I'm going to give this in American dollars. They obviously asked for it in lira, but so they finally called in with a demand for $17 million for his safe return. So JP2 asked his father, J. Paul, for the money, but he refused.
Yep.
Of course. However, I will say he did have a valid point. He argued that if he paid ransom, because this was a huge big deal in the public. He argued that he had 13 other grandchildren. And if he paid the ransom for this one grandchild, then the other 13 were immediately going to be at risk.
Yeah.
He was going to be paying it for all 13. So in the meantime, the kidnappers sent another demand, but it was delayed by an Italian postal strike.
Oh, shit.
They weren't unbelievably cruel to him, but neither were they good to him.
Yeah.
It's like they gave him a transistor radio, but then they took it away. One report said he had tamed a bird and kept it as a pet. They killed it. One report claimed they played Russian roulette against his head.
Uh-huh.
That would be...
Yeah, that's
traumatizing.
Right. That's you thinking, I'm going to die any second.
So in November, which is 4 months later, these people have been holding him for 4 months. A daily paper in Italy received a package containing a lock of bloody hair, his ear, and a note demanding $3.2 million. Then, because apparently it didn't come back fast enough, they also sent to another paper pictures of the side of his head where his ear was cut off. So that was just and of course it was published. There were
the papers though.
So the note said, "This is Paul's first ear. If within 10 days the family still believes that this is a joke mounted by him, then the other ear will arrive. In other words, he will arrive in little bits."
Yeah.
And he talks about in the Rolling Stone interview, which is a really interesting read because some of the language the interviewer used was a little florid, but he talks about, they kept telling him they were going to cut one of his fingers off because his family didn't believe it. So then they tell him, "We're giving you a haircut." And they sit him down, and they do. They cut his hair like a bowl cut, and then they wash his head and his neck with alcohol.
Uh-huh.
And then they set him back to his closet or, whatever, wherever they were holding him. And that's when he twigged to what was going on. And he was like, "Holy shit, they're not taking a finger. They're going to cut my ear off." And they did. And they held him down. They gave him a cloth to bite on. I don't mean to, I'm saying this sympathetically. I'm not. Because they cut his fucking ear off.
Yeah.
But they did it with I believe it was with a sharp straight razor. So it was just one swoop. And it hurt a fucking tremendous amount.
Super tender over here. Well, just press on your ear wrong and
So what they didn't expect was that his health was going to decline. Because at some point...
Gosh, when you're under threat constantly and they chop off your ear... What a surprise.
Yeah, he developed pneumonia. Now, I'm not sure...
Caves.
Yeah, caves, not great food. Well, these were not like wealthy people holding him in a house.
Yeah.
So they were also on the lam. And they had to be just fucking tired of this. But when you think about it, it was a group of men. I want to say 9 people. I have the figure later. It's not cheap for 9 people to move around and keep him hidden
and
keep
feed 9 people. Feeding 4 people is expensive.
Yeah. So there was obviously some big money behind this. The other thing he complained about, justifiably, don't get me wrong, was that they wouldn't give him water very often. They gave him brandy. They'd be force marching him up the side of a mountain and would give him brandy. So he'd be stumbling drunk by the time he got where they were going. I can't even imagine. But they also, so he had pneumonia. He developed an infection at the site of the amputation. So they gave him penicillin, which he was allergic, not deathly, but which he was allergic to. And they believed that one of the reasons they gave him brandy was because they were in the mountains. It would make him feel warm. It doesn't actually keep you warm.
No, which
it just
they've
makes
proven since then.
Yeah, it just
makes you lose body heat.
Yeah, it makes you think you're warm.
Yeah.
But to dull the pain, make him feel warm, and keep him quiet.
What? Yeah.
So, finally, J. Paul Getty agrees to pay $2.2 million. The maximum amount that his accountants told him would be tax deductible.
Oh, shit. So, well, but here's the thing. Yeah, Lindbergh gave less than that ransom.
Yeah. So he agreed to lend his son, JP2, the remainder at 4% interest.
Jesus Christ.
So I will say that in the U.S., the mortgage rate at that time was about 8%. I looked this up. So it was half the mortgage rate.
Holy shit. 8%.
Yep.
Wow.
They drove him into the middle of fucking nowhere and kind of kicked him out of the car. Uh-huh. They said, sit here and don't turn around. So he did sit there for a while, but eventually I think he had another blindfold on. He took the blindfold off and he's like, nobody would pick him up. Well, he's a mess.
Yeah.
He's an absolute filthy mess.
Bloody, filthy.
Blood drip all over his clothes, crusted on the side of his head.
I can't imagine. He started out skinny, so he was probably just bones.
Yes. So he stops. He's trying to wave down a cart. Nobody will stop. He finally, a trucker stops and rolls down his window, and the guy is like, I am John Paul Getty III. Can you please take me to the police? And the guy was like, fuck off. But he drives into town and it's all over the news. So he goes to the police and says, hey, there's a strange looking dude out there claiming to be John Paul Getty III out on this road. You might want to check. So they go and pick him up on December 15th. So when he calls so his mother tells him, you need to call your grandfather and thank him. And he did, but his grandfather refused to come to the phone. Now, in the interview later, he said his grandfather was prone to some irrational fears. And at that moment in time, it was fearing that something was going to come out of the telephone, so he wouldn't touch it. So he actually did communicate through an intermediary. I don't know, Jeeves, the butler, answered the phone, whoever, an assistant. So he's like, your grandson is on the phone. He says, thanks. Your grandfather says, you're welcome. It was one of those deals.
Wow. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times with the rich and crazy.
Oh. So 9 kidnappers were apprehended and 2 were convicted and sentenced. The money, or at least most of the money, was never recovered. And I will say in 1977, he did have surgery to rebuild the ear he had lost. He said when they cut his ear off, the thing that bothered him the most, and he talked about how his thoughts went. And he played games with his fingers.
Yeah.
They were like characters and he made up little plays.
You had to do something.
Yeah. And at some point in time, his whole reason for getting through a day was to make a scratch on a rock so he would know that one more day had gone by. But he said after they cut his ear off, he was really upset that he would never be able to wear sunglasses again because he really liked wearing sunglasses. So yes, he had his ear rebuilt in 77.
So he could wear sunglasses.
He could wear sunglasses again. So it was in 1974. He was on the cover of the Rolling Stone, not naked. That Playman, that issue came out a month after he was kidnapped.
Oh.
It was published, and they still ran with it. It was. Now, I don't know. It says they put a naked picture of him on the cover, and there was a spread in the middle of the magazine. I imagine it had to be part of an article, but who knows? I did a very brief search, and then I thought, I don't want to look up pictures of naked men on the internet. That's not...
Especially not naked 15-year-olds.
No.
Nobody. I wonder if that would even be allowed online. I mean, that's child pornography.
Well, I was actually trying to look up the magazine.
Oh, gotcha.
So I wasn't looking for him particular, but I was trying to find the magazine, and then I said...
But your search engine would have caught into the fact... I mean, that's how it works. Your search engine would have known that you've been searching that. It would have been more likely to bring up the picture of him.
Oh, that was Joe Esterhaus.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing his...
Why do I know that name?
I don't know, because I know it too. He's famous.
I feel like he does stuff in Hollywood too.
He might.
Yeah.
He might. But he did the interview.
Okay.
That was in Rolling Stone. Despite the fact that the Getty family pretty much could light their cigars with $1,000 bills. Okay. The rest of John Paul Getty III's life was pretty much a reflection of the trauma of that kidnapping. He got married in 1974. And remember how young he was. He was 18 years old when his son Balthazar was born the following year.
So Balthazar Getty. I had a little thing for him when I was young.
Yeah, that's his son.
Yeah.
The marriage ended in divorce. Now, this is a weird thing. His wife did not divorce him until 1993. But I don't believe they'd been living together for years before that. So JP3 did some acting, hung out with Andy Warhol's crowd, suffered a just horrific drug and alcohol addiction. So in 1981, at the age of 25, he drank a Valium, methadone, and alcohol cocktail, which caused liver failure and a stroke. It left him a quadriplegic, half-blind, and unable to speak. That was in 1981. His mother cared for him and ended up suing his father for $28,000 a month to care for him. He died at his father's British estate in 2011 at the age of 54, never having regained his health after that overdose in 81. So that's...
And he wasn't...
He was 25 when he took that cocktail.
Damn.
And he lived... So he had 25 years, not good, happy years. And then he had 30 years of misery before he died in 2011.
And so in the 80s, he became hospitalized.
Yep.
And then, but his wife didn't divorce until 93?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I double checked it in a couple different places, and it seems...
I mean, if you aren't trying to remarry somebody else, that's usually...
I guess.
Then I guess you coast along and you have the family money, perhaps. I don't know.
I have to think there was some financial consideration for... Yeah. But it's just, he had such a... And it doesn't sound like he had any kind of happy childhood.
No.
He doesn't remember spending much time with his father. He made fun of his stepfather, who was His stepfather was in a bunch of gladiator movies. He was like the premier gladiator actor. They were like spaghetti westerns, but they were gladiator movies. And I think his mother was only with his stepfather for like a year. And then she went back to Rome. So it's just...
It's very sad.
It is very, very sad. He had to have been so unhappy for so long. But I'm like, you've got the Hearsts, you've got the Gettys. They have all the money in the world, but that doesn't mean you're going to be happy.
No.
Or safe.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, in Patty Hearst's case, it was said that the reason that the family member, that she wasn't protected in the first place, was because her father wasn't like actively getting money from it or anything like that. Like he wasn't working in the Hearst world, and so they didn't feel that there needed to be protection. But all people are going to see it. They didn't understand. Didn't matter. You had the name and they would assume that you had access to that money. Mm-hmm. But Lord, just when we look at all these stories of these rich people and they have their ways of keeping it, and they have their eccentricities, but they're certainly not guaranteed to be kind to their family members either.
No.
And I get like the general rule. I mean, look at the U.S. We will not pay ransoms, right? Mm-hmm. When terrorists take people, because of course, when you do, then it encourages it more. But then if you're that person who's having that ransom asked for, you're like, I don't understand why you couldn't just save me.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I get both sides of it.
Getty, the first one, J. Paul, he was one of the first to go to the Middle East for oil. Uh-huh. And I don't know, it was one side reference because he spoke Arabic. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? There was nothing about it. He studied languages or nothing. It was just, it was in something about, the larger picture of how he made money over there. And it was a gamble at the time because they hadn't discovered the vast resources. And so he took the gamble. It was like, because of his his hunch and his ability to speak Arabic. And I'm like, you don't just wake up one day and go, I think I'll learn Arabic.
I'm going to speak some Arabic.
It's hard. It's not anything like English.
No. And it's a whole different syllabary.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, anyway.
Fascinating. All right. So, let's see. Where's our question? I had it written here. We're totally, because we've already asked you guys about kidnapping, we're going for the frou-frou questions. And our question this week is, what's your favorite holiday movie?
Yes, because there's hot debate about holiday movies, because I don't like some of the treacly ones.
See, we watch, our big one each year is, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, because I am married to Clark Griswold in some ways. I will say my husband is much smarter than Clark Griswold, just for the record.
Yes.
But he is currently he was decorating our house last time you were here to record, and he is decorating it still because it is a process.
It looks lovely.
And there's more to come. So
we have like a string of lights on the outside of our house. Right. And Joe was like, maybe I'll add a second string, but I don't want to climb the ladder that high off the ground. So maybe I won't. I'm like, whatever.
And of course, we do watch Die Hard every year too.
Oh, yeah. Die Hard.
Yeah, you have to.
Now, I also would lobby for Trading Places.
Yeah.
That is another one. And
Krampus. I watch, there's several horror movies. Black Christmas, the original, is a good one. I pull out the Christmas horror movies this time of year. It makes me happy.
And I ran into a woman the other day, and the subject of Christmas movies came up, and she said, War of the Roses.
Yeah.
And once I thought about it, I was like...
Right at first I was all, woo!
Yeah, but some very significant scenes take place at Christmas time, and I'm like... And I think, don't they meet at Christmas?
Oh, no, that I don't remember.
I don't remember that, but there's a big scene when they're early together of the Christmas present she buys him.
Yeah. That movie's spectacular. That's definitely an annual rewatch.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it forever. I need to rewatch that.
So, that defines dark comedy.
It really does.
It is twisted and it is funny as hell.
Yes, and the ending is bleak, and it is the most satisfying ending to a movie I've possibly ever seen. Mm-hmm. So now you know a little bit about how twisted we are. I also
know that we define holiday movie pretty lightly.
Yeah. I also like the original Grinch cartoon.
Oh. So I was trying to think of movies that aren't Christmas, but are winter holiday related, and I'm at a loss right now, which is sad, because I know there's something that I watch, but I can't think of it. There's not a lot of them, obviously. It's not a rich source. So anyway, folks, you can find us on mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. Email us at mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. And we appreciate you listening.
Yes.
We'll talk to you next week.
Swing by Facebook, say hello, tell us what you're thinking.
Answer some stuff. Tell us what you're reading on Mondays, because I post that too. I guess I don't really put that on here, but on Mondays we want to know what you're watching and reading, just like we talk about what we're doing, because we might want to watch or read or whatever
we're always looking for the next fun thing.
That's right.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.